There are people who rarely struggle socially. Others enjoy talking to them. Conversations feel natural. The atmosphere around them is relaxed. Everything works the way social interaction is expected to work. But this does not always lead to a feeling of being understood. Because liking someone and recognizing how they think are two different processes. Being liked is largely a surface-level phenomenon. It emerges when certain visible traits align well with the social environment. A sense of humor fits the tone of a group. Opinions are easy to agree with. The personality expressed in conversation feels familiar to others. None of this is artificial. It is simply selective. Social environments tend to respond most strongly to the parts of a person that are easy to interpret. These parts become socially visible, and visibility often turns into likability. This process is almost automatic. In everyday interactions, people respond to cues that are quickly recognizable. Tone of voice, conversational rhythm, facial expressions, and shared references. These signals allow others to form a comfortable impression within minutes. Psychologically, this is efficient. Human social systems evolved to detect familiarity quickly, but familiarity is not the same as understanding. Understanding operates on a deeper level of perception. It involves recognizing not only what someone expresses, but how their thinking is structured. The difference is subtle but important. Liking someone usually means appreciating the way they appear in social interaction. Understanding someone means perceiving the underlying pattern behind that appearance, their reasoning, their motivations, the quiet assumptions that shape the way they interpret the world. Most social settings do not go far enough to reveal those patterns. Conversations tend to orbit around events, opinions, and shared experiences. These topics are comfortable. They move quickly. They maintain social harmony, but they rarely expose the deeper architecture of someone's inner world. And without that architecture, understanding remains incomplete. Consider how most conversations unfold. Someone tells a story about something that happened earlier that day. Another person responds with a similar story. The conversation continues through association. This rhythm is natural. It creates connection through shared experience. But it also keeps the discussion at a level where deeper patterns remain hidden. True understanding usually appears in a different kind of dialogue. The pace slows down. People begin discussing ideas rather than events, motivations rather than actions, patterns rather than isolated situations. In these moments, something interesting happens. The focus shifts from what happened to how someone interprets what happens. That shift opens a window into the structure of a person's thinking. When that structure becomes visible, recognition can occur. Someone might articulate an idea with unusual precision, not necessarily something profound, but something accurate, a description of a pattern that has existed internally for a long time, and suddenly another person recognizes it. The recognition feels immediate and quiet. There is no dramatic reaction, just a sense that something internal has been mirrored correctly. Psychologically, this moment is quite significant. Human beings constantly translate their internal experiences into simplified language for social interaction. Thoughts are compressed, nuances are removed, complex reasoning becomes short explanations. This translation process is necessary because most environments do not allow enough time or attention for full complexity. but the result is that much of the internal world remains unexpressed. Being liked usually happens within the translated version. Others respond positively to the parts that have already been simplified for communication: the humor, the opinions, the conversational style. These elements are real, but they are not the complete structure of the person behind them. Understanding requires seeing beyond the translation. When someone recognizes the deeper pattern behind a person's words, the experience feels different from ordinary approval. Approval is pleasant, recognition is relieving. The relief comes from the absence of translation. For a moment, the internal and external descriptions align without effort. Nothing needs to be simplified or adjusted. The pattern is simply noticed. This is one reason why moments of understanding often feel unusually memorable. They are not necessarily dramatic. Sometimes they appear in a quiet conversation between two people who are calmly discussing an idea. But internally something shifts, a sense that one's internal perspective is not entirely solitary. Interestingly, many people move through life receiving a great deal of positive social feedback without experiencing this kind of recognition very often. They are appreciated, respected, sometimes even admired, but admiration and understanding are different psychological experiences. Admiration focuses on visible traits. Understanding focuses on invisible patterns. Because of this, someone can be widely liked and still feel intellectually isolated. The social environment responds warmly to the visible personality, but the deeper reasoning behind that personality remains mostly unseen. This creates a subtle imbalance. Externally, there is connection. Internally, there is partial privacy. Occasionally, a conversation breaks this pattern. Perhaps the topic shifts towards something abstract, an idea about human behavior, a reflection on how certain situations repeat themselves. Someone describes a thought process in a way that reveals structure beneath it, and another person immediately recognizes the pattern. In those moments, communication becomes more precise, not louder or more emotional, simply more accurate. The experience of being understood often produces a quiet sense of cognitive alignment, two minds noticing the same structure. Sometimes the recognition is mutual, sometimes it is asymmetrical, but either way, the moment stands out because it bypasses the usual simplifications of social interaction. An interesting question often emerges from this distinction. Is the desire to be liked actually the same as the desire to be understood? Or are they two different psychological needs that are often confused with one another? Liking satisfies the instinct for belonging. Understanding satisfies the need for intellectual resonance. Both are valuable, but they fulfill different dimensions of social life. People who begin noticing this distinction often become more attentive. Observers of others, they listen not only for what is said, but for the pattern behind it, the reasoning beneath a statement, the assumptions behind an opinion, the quiet motivations that shape someone's perspective. Over time, this creates a different kind of social awareness, one that values recognition more than simple approval. In the end, the difference between being liked and being understood is a difference in depth. Liking occurs when visible traits fit comfortably within a social environment. Understanding occurs when the deeper structure of a person's thinking becomes visible to another mind. Both experiences are meaningful, but they operate on different layers of human connection. The difference between being liked and being understood is not always visible from the outside. Many interactions look successful, conversations are pleasant, people appreciate each other's company, but the most meaningful moments of connection often appear when someone recognizes the structure behind another person's thinking. When that happens, conversation becomes simpler. Ideas no longer need to be adjusted constantly, and for a moment, communication feels exactly as it was meant to feel.